Hi guys, so it's time for me to do my video again today. So I thought I'd do a topic video today because we've had a relatively calm kind of indoorsy day today, so there's not much to report on what Charlie's been up to. So I thought I would cover the topic of diagnosing, obviously because that's a major part of Charlie's life leading up to that moment. So I thought it'd be a good one to cover because some of you might have gone through it already, some of you might be trying to get to that stage at the moment, so I thought it maybe be quite a good way to start doing these kind of topic type videos. So it was about when Charlie was about 1 year old, I realised that something was going on. I have a little brother who's actually autistic, so growing up with autism, I knew quite a lot about it, so I could see traits in Charlie from such a young age. So as a baby, Charlie was really happy, really babbling a lot, you know, all the normal things, crawling, sitting up, even though it did take him a little while. Charlie was 1 year old when he started to sit up, and it was when he started to sit up that he realised that he could start to crawl as well. So it was a bit late, but he got there, so I wasn't too worried about that. But I took him to his 1 year review, which was at our local children's centre actually. They did it there because there's some more space so they could, you know, go through more children. And I'd had a lady that I'd not had before, I hadn't seen her, so I'm not too sure if she was a health visitor that, you know, come down from somewhere else to help out. And she'd asked me about Charlie, just general questions, you know, making sure everything was okay. And I had said to her, you know, oh, he's just started to sit up and crawl. And obviously I was really excited. With it being a little bit later than average, like, I was even more so excited. And she'd asked me, oh, could you just sit Charlie up, so, you know, so we can see. And Charlie was already stressed. There was, you know, a lot of children there, a lot of unfamiliar faces, a lot of unfamiliar adults. So he wasn't in the most cooperating mood anyway. I said, oh, I can give it a go. So I tried to sit him up, but he was still quite wobbly and you know, teetering over. And I said, well, you know, like I said, he's just, you know, he's just starting to do it now. And this one was trying to force Charlie to sit up. He should be doing this, he should be doing that. Made me feel very uncomfortable and quite upset. So that wasn't very nice. And then had the audacity to say, I will send a health visitor to your home to check that everything's okay. So that wasn't great. Especially when I already had concerns for Charlie. So somebody else being quite nasty about it wasn't really helping at that time. So it was when Charlie was 1.5 years old, or just before, they decided that they thought he might be deaf or partially deaf, which is how we actually started getting into the diagnosing stages. And we saw a doctor who lives literally just around the corner from our house actually, well, is based around the corner from our home. And they said, oh, you know, we're just going to do a few little tests to see about Charlie's hearing. So they stand behind him with like this bleeper doing different pitch sounds to see if Charlie would turn his head to either side to react to the noise, pushing little toy cars along, things like that, see if, just any noise really, to see if he could pick up on it. And then they like stuck some little tubes into his ear, which was in a different room, which was very, very small. You could only just about fit in it, so Charlie automatically was stressed then, which was awful. And that was just see if it picked up sound waves. But because Charlie was wiggling a lot, obviously it didn't go very well. So they said, oh, well, we'll try again in a few weeks. I think it was 6 weeks' time. And he said, you know, we'll try again. I don't want to upset him too much because we're not going to get anything otherwise. So we took him back, and Charlie remembered his previous experience, so I wasn't very happy at all. Which then resulted in us being transferred to a hospital where they sedated Charlie, so he'd go to sleep. And then they could do a proper hearing test then, while he was like pretty much conked out. And then everything that come back fine. And the doctor we'd seen in Whitby asked us to come back, and he said to us, look, I think Charlie's autistic, but because you were here previous for a hearing test, I wasn't allowed to say anything then. That's why I've asked you to come back. I'd like to know what your views on it are. You know, is autism something you've heard about before? And I said, well, I'm really glad because that's what I think is going on for Charlie. So from then, Charlie saw this doctor every 6 months. He still does now. But now it's just more for reviews and to check everything's fine and that we're not needing any additional therapies that might need, a referral for. So Charlie saw him every 6 months, doing little tests, seeing if he could push toy cars, if he'd respond to his own name, if he'd recognise his own reflection in the mirror. Just all developmental things like that, could he build a tower? So it's a bit of everything what your atypical children are likely to do at a similar age. Then he did Charlie's chronological age, so he had a medical report in the post, which said that Charlie's mental age was about 8 months old. And by this point, Charlie was about 3 years old, just before he was 3 years old. So that was quite a big shock. In things like hand-eye coordination, there's different sectors to it. Charlie would score a higher age in particular ones, but as an overall age, it was 8 months. And obviously, living with Charlie, and you know how many struggles that he has, but to hear that his overall age was so young was quite a big shock. But we were then referred on to MPAC, and then from them to ASMPAC, who were the people who diagnosed Charlie. So we were on a waiting list for a long time, but we got there in the end. So it was quite good when it come to doing the test with Charlie to find out if he was autistic. He just went into a room and they had toys and he could just do whatever he liked and they had to observe him. And there was a speech and language therapist, an early years, so from an early years setting, a bit of everyone, a bit of everything that you can think of really. And Charlie just kind of wandered around. So for Charlie, he didn't quite realise that anything was going on. The speech and language therapists were kind of following him around, mimicking noises he makes, see how Charlie would react if he would communicate back in his own way with his little sounds that he does. We obviously are making a lot of notes, so we weren't obviously aware of what they were writing, and we wouldn't be until it come to a meeting for his care plan as to what they thought about Charlie and his development. So by the time we got to that point, Charlie was developing slightly better, but still at a rate where you could tell that something wasn't quite right. So we had to wait for a couple of weeks after Charlie had the test with ASMPAC. So that felt like the longest 2 weeks in the entire universe. Even though we were so certain that Charlie was autistic, when you're waiting for someone professional to say yes, and then your doors can open to help, it just feels like you're waiting forever. It feels like the day's just never going to come. And I was probably an awful person to live with because I was like a cat on a hot tin roof, and I was absolutely petrified because I thought, what if it's something else? What if it isn't autism? What if it's something similar? What if I haven't heard about this before and I've been so certain and I've got it wrong? But then you worry about, how am I going to react? I'm so sure in my mind that this is what it is. So am I just going to go, oh yeah, that's fine? Or am I going to completely break down? It's just one of them things where you're not quite sure where you're going to be mentally. And they'd rang me to say, that they had a diagnosis and that someone would come out to our house and, have a meeting with us at home and let us know the verdict, if you like. But because they knew us and we'd met these people so many times from MPAC as well, they knew that we were so prepared for this. She said, I can tell you over the phone if you'd like, because we'll see you in the next week for his care plan meeting. So, if there's any questions you want to ask then, you've got plenty of time to kind of gather yourself and think of anything if you have any questions. That same day, we were actually out on a trip with the Children's Centre. And Dina got into town because, like always, we'd forgot something that we needed. And I'd been on the phone from 8 o'clock, ringing to get hold of this woman. And when I did, Dean was out with Charlie. Or with Poppy. I can't remember which one. It was just such a blur. And she said, look, I can tell you over the phone, that's fine. So I said, just begging her, please just tell me. And she said, we can say Charlie's got autism. It won't be up till when he's older that he's placed on the spectrum, but he's just got a general diagnosis for now. And I've never felt relief like it in my life. I've never been so relieved. You think it would just be pure hit you in the face, but I felt relief first. It was quite overwhelming, just for the fact that until that diagnosis is there, until that label has been stuck on your child, no one's going to help you. And when you see a little boy who is so stuck and is finding day-to-day life and just the world around him an entire struggle, and no one will listen to you and no one will help you, it is so frustrating. And then you think, Christ, this is how I feel. What is poor child going through? So first, it's just like an overwhelming sense of, finally, now we're going to get somewhere, we're going to get referrals, child's going to get the help he needs. He's going to be able to be in this special needs academy where we want him to go, where he's really going to thrive, and it's such a fantastic place for him to be. And we needed that diagnosis for him to be there. So first it was great. And then once I come off the phone, it just hit me. I thought, oh my God, wow. And it's like you grieving, even though we wouldn't change a hair on Chai's head, would not change how Chai is for the entire universe. You're still grieving for the child that you could have had if that autism hadn't been there. And I think that's quite, at first I felt awful for feeling like that. Once you get so far down the line, I think that's quite a normal process to go through. I've spoken to a lot of other parents that have said that's exactly how it was feeling for them. So that was quite good to know that I wasn't some like horrible person. So once we had that, we'd had his care plan meeting, and from there Charlie had a speech and language therapist. They asked us if we wanted occupational therapy. Quite a few different things. We hadn't had any physiotherapy at that time because at that point we weren't aware of Charlie's hypermobility, but Charlie can manage that quite well. He struggles with it a lot. He's in his pushchair pretty much 100% of the time. If he walks anywhere, he can become very distressed because his poor little ankles just can't take it. But we had a lot of people suddenly come in from a lot of different places. Things were being put forward for him to go to school. Plans were being made, how we were going to transfer him, we went to see the school in the summer holidays. His teacher was there one day, so we took Chai through in the summer so that he could see before he went, so it wasn't such a shock to him, which was brilliant. I didn't think it would impact on Chai that much. I thought he'd forget, but the first day we took him to school, he was so happy to go in, he just couldn't wait to get in. He knew where everything was, and he was so content. And it's just been the same since. But I just thought it was quite important to make a video of what it's actually like to go through that, because part of it was great because we thought finally we're getting there. We've just been fighting for this for years, and finally it's come. And we're lucky to have Charlie diagnosed so young. We are so lucky. But when you've waited for a couple of years, a few years, it feels so much longer than what it is, because everything is a constant battle. You're constantly battling people to listen to you, to do something to help your child. Because personally, without the professional help, you can't really do anything. You can try, but you're not too sure how your child's going to learn, so it's quite difficult. So I thought that would be quite a good one to go through. But just an important message really as well. If this is something you are going through at the moment with your little one, if you're maybe trying to get a diagnosis, we wouldn't lie, it is an absolute nightmare and it is awful because you've just fought for so long. But just stick at it, because if someone had told us before this, before Chai was diagnosed, before Chai went to Woodlands, I wouldn't have believed them if they said things are going to be so much better. Chai's going to embrace the world around him. He's going to make friends. He's going to want to be in the company of other children. He'll come home and he'll have painted you a picture. I'd have thought, not that I'd ever put Chai down or doubt his ability, but back then when you're in such a hard place, to think of things getting better is quite difficult. I would have been like, I can't see it, I'll just have to wait till it happens, I just can't quite believe it. But we're in a situation now, things are so much better. Chai's doing amazingly well, and he's catching up to himself. And I see him at school with his friends, and he's playing, and he's wanting to interact with them, he's wanting to work with them. And Chai a few years ago wouldn't let anyone close. He wouldn't let anyone in. He didn't want to know anybody. He just wanted to be him, and he just wanted to be left to his own thing, and it was quite distressing. But I mean, you've seen footage of him now. We share pictures of him for his pro workbook. If you're going through this, you always have a point where you think, I want to give up. Not because you don't want to get where you want to be for your child, but it mentally, it's so stressful and it really drains you. It really does. But you've just got to keep going. Because if you don't fight for your little boy or your little girl, who's going to? Nobody else is going to. So you have to be strong, not just for you, but for your kids. Because if you're not going to be that person that's saying, right, every brick wall that's coming up in front of us, we're just going to completely knock it down. If you're not that headstrong person who, like us, rings up, right, have you got your evidence in for statement? Is this done? Is this done? Is this done? Nobody else is going to. And you're never going to get anywhere. So you just stick at it. Because once it's over, you'll realise it's the best thing you could have possibly done. And when you see the results, it's just absolutely phenomenal. So I think that's quite enough of me being emotional now.